Little Red Riding Hood by Brothers Grimm. There once was a sweet little girl. Everyone who set eyes on her immediately loved her. But her grandmother loved her the most of all. She showered the girl with gifts. One time she gave her a little hood made of red velvet, and because it suited her so well, and she would wear nothing else, people took to calling her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take it to your grandmother. She is sick and weak, and it will make her feel better. Get ready before it's too hot out. And once you're on your way, watch where you're going and see that you keep to the path. Or else you'll break the bottle and it won't do grandmother a bit of good. And when you get to her place, don't forget to say, 'Good morning, Grandma,' before you go poking your nose into every corner." "I'll do everything you say," Little Red Riding Hood promised her mother with a handshake. But her grandmother lived deep in the woods, half an hour from the village. No sooner did Little Red Riding Hood enter the forest than she ran into the wolf. But she had no idea what kind of evil creature it was and was not afraid of it. "Hello, how are you, Little Red Riding Hood?" said the wolf. "Very well, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Where are you off to so early, Little Red Riding Hood?" "To grandmother's house." "What do you have there under your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday we baked, and I'm taking it to grandmother, who's sick and weak, to make her feel better." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "Oh, about a quarter of an hour from here in the woods, under the three oak trees and the house with walnut hedges out front. I'm sure you know the place," said Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, "The tender young thing. There's a juicy mouthful. She'll taste much better than the old biddy. Best be sly about it, and you'll get the two of them." So he went walking for a while next to the girl. Then he said, "Look, Little Red Riding Hood, at the lovely flowers growing over there. Why don't you look around? It seems to me you don't even hear the little birds singing sweetly in the treetops. You're walking so stiffly, like you're headed for school, and you're missing all the fun in the woods." Little Red Riding Hood opened her eyes wide, and when she saw how the rays of sunlight danced through the trees and how the forest bed was covered with lovely flowers, she thought, "If I bring grandmother a fresh black bouquet of flowers, it will make her happy. It's so early. I've got plenty of time to get there." And she ran from the path into the woods to pluck flowers. And no sooner had she plucked one than she spotted a prettier one a little further off and ran to fetch it. And so she wandered ever deeper into the woods. But the wolf went straight to grandmother's house and knocked at her door. "Who's there?" "It's Little Red Riding Hood, come to bring you cake and wine." "Open the door." "Just lift the latch. It isn't locked," cried grandmother. "I'm too weak to get up." The wolf lifted the latch, the door opened, and he entered without a word, went straight to grandmother's bed, and gobbled her up. Then he put on her clothes, donned her bonnet, lay himself in her bed, and pulled the bed curtains. But Little Red Riding Hood had run around fetching flowers, and once she'd picked so many she couldn't carry any more. She remembered her grandmother and set out again to her place. She was a bit surprised when she got there to find the door open, and when she went in, she had such a strange feeling that she thought, "My goodness, I'm usually glad to visit, but today there's something wrong." She called out, "Good morning, Grandma." but there was no reply. Then she went over to the bed and pulled back the curtains. Grandmother lay there with her bonnet pulled down low over her eyes and looked so strange. "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have!" "The better to hear you with." "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have!" "The better to see you with." "Oh, grandmother, what big hands you have!" "The better to hold you with." "But, grandmother, what an awfully big mouth you have!" "The better to eat you." No sooner did the wolf utter these words than he leaped up and devoured poor little Red Riding Hood. Once the wolf had satisfied his desire, he lay himself back down in bed, fell asleep, and started snoring loudly. A hunter just happened to be passing the house at that moment and thought, "The old lady's snoring up a storm. Better go see if she's all right." So he stepped inside. As soon as he went over to the bed, he saw the wolf lying in it. "Here you are, you old sinner," he said. "I've been looking for you a long time." He was about to empty his musket, but then he thought the wolf might have eaten up the grandmother and maybe she can still be saved. So he did not shoot, but rather took a pair of scissors and started cutting open the sleeping wolf's stomach. After a few snips, he saw the red hood, and a few snips later, the girl leaped out and cried, "Oh, how scared I was!" It was so dark in the wolf's belly. And then the old grandmother came out, still alive but hardly breathing. Little Red Riding Hood rushed to fetch a few big stones to stuff into the wolf's belly, and when he walked up, he wanted to make a run for it. But the stones were so heavy that he called over and promptly dropped dead. Whereupon all three were happy. The hunter skinned off the wolf's fur and went home with it, and the grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine the Little Red Riding Hood brought her and got better. Little Red Riding Hood thought, "I'll never ever wander off the straight and narrow path again if my mother forbids it." It has also been told that another time, when Little Red Riding Hood again went to bring her old grandmother a piece of cake, another wolf spoke to her and tried to lure her off the path. But Little Red Riding Hood was on her guard and kept to the path, and when she got to her grandmother's house, she told her that she'd met the wolf, that he'd wished her a good day, but he had such an evil look in his eyes. "If I hadn't been on the open road, he'd have devoured me for sure." "Come," said the grandmother. "We want to lock the door so that he can't get in." Surely thereafter the wolf knocked and cried, "Open up, grandmother! I'm Little Red Riding Hood, and I brought you cake." But they kept silent and did not open the door. So the sly gray creature crept several times around the house and finally jumped on the roof, where he planned to wait until sundown for Little Red Riding Hood to go home again. He intended to creep after her and devour her in the dark. But grandmother realized what he had in mind. Just outside the house, there was a big stone trough. So she said to the child, "Take this bucket, Little Red Riding Hood. Yesterday I cooked sausages in it. Here, carry the water. I cooked them in and dump it into the trough." Red Riding Hood kept carrying water until the big trough was full to the edge. The sausage smell rose up to the wolf's nose. He sniffed and peered down, and finally he stretched his neck so far out that he lost his balance and starting to slip. Then he fell from the roof directly into the great trough and drowned. Then Little Red Riding Hood went happily home again, and nobody did her any harm.